Thank you for watching. I'm John Razimus. In this video, in this live stream, it's as live as it gets. Let's hope this one works. The topic of this video is how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. We need people to be able to see this first, so let me try to send out a link. Right. I might have just accidentally lost the title of the video. But I'm John Razimus. Hold tight while I get this working. I tried this through Google Groups this time. The last time I tried it was through the quick, convenient button of go live now. Just go live, bam. And not sure it worked. Just have to tweet this out so people can see it, people can find it. The subject of this live stream is how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. There is a technique I learned on how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. Oh my gosh, I'm hearing feedback from myself. I just had to pause it so I can see the chat. I got to open up two windows. It's a complicated process. All right. Brandon Young. So we're live, I'm guessing, hopefully, huh? I can see your comments now. All right. Sometimes I ignore the chat only because I have the Google Groups thing open. Let's get back to the subject of this video, how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. You've all seen a device like this on a show like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Lockdown, Ghost Hunting Hunters International, whatever the case. There's 1,000 ghost hunting shows, which makes it look fun. Yeah, it's exciting. I want to get one of these and hunt ghosts. But it's not all fun and games. Because if you hunt ghosts, they will hunt you back. See, it's fun and games when you're watching the show. Thank you. You can hear and see me. Thank you very much. If anyone else would like to ask a question, I will be answering questions in the future during this live stream, which started a good 6 minutes too late, 7 minutes too late. So I'll take into account the lateness. I always run into glitches. Okay, how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. Watching the shows is fun. Getting the devices, turning them on is fun. But there's a very unfun part. Oh, thank you, Brandon. $1.99 from Brandon Young. Brandon, if you have any questions or topics or subjects, man, I could bring Brandon on through the. I don't know if you want to come on, but let me see if I can find that. All right. Let me get that link. I don't know if Brandon wants to join us. If he does, I'll send him a link. And so I just direct messaged you that link, Brandon, if you want to come on and join us during this impromptu live stream. I decided to do it just a good 5 hours ago. I'm like, you know what? Let's do a live stream because I had to take down a video because there's a good time. There's like a power hour, if you will, in video game terminology. I'm sure that comes from something else, where you can get good numbers if you put up a video in a window. And I've noticed that window is Friday night, Saturday morning. I look at my past 30 days of videos, and the ones with the higher numbers were all posted Friday night, Saturday morning. Usually like a 1 a.m. Saturday morning on Friday night, 12 a.m. or 11 p.m. Friday night. And just a time when people are off work and they want to watch a video. They'll see the notification, they'll click it. So if it's Monday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I posted it on Thursday, and I think it was just a bad time slot, but I wanted to edit the video. I wanted to make it more succinct, more interesting. I added a few scenes of the Hollywood Boulevard ghost investigation video, and it kind of had a cyberpunk feel to it. I saw this weird art display, which seemed to make no sense, of a mannequin wearing a snorkel and a neon sign that said, okay. It made no sense, but it was kind of cyberpunk. So I wanted to go back and edit that in there. Has nothing to do with ghost investigations, but I wanted to make it look a little bit better. But the results you see in that video I will be posting shortly with the Mel meter are 100% authentic. I made sure my phone was off. There was no one on the street. I passed a few shopkeepers closing up shop, or maybe people walking out of a liquor store. One guy on the corner I talked to for a minute. There was no one with a cell phone to affect it, but I have noticed if a cell phone is close, it's no different than a cell tower being close. A cell phone needs to be within probably 4 feet of this to do anything. A cell tower within like 100 feet, who knows, but it definitely affects it. Okay. I sent you the link. Okay, feel free to show up whenever you want. The topic of this video is how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. And I have this, hopefully I have this whiteboard here. And I've only used it once on my video where I talk about the 3 main types of demons. Kind of scary subject, but it's just a theory of mine I formulated from observing actual entities, not directly, but indirectly. You can observe the invisible indirectly, much like you could observe wind, moving branches on a tree. With demons, it's a little more, with spirits, with invisible people, if you will, you gotta really notice the faint things. Energy beings. Okay, let me try to make it visible. I'm just gonna write how to see ghosts on here. All right. How to see ghosts. How to see ghosts for paranormal investigatory reasons is the topic of this video. There's actually a technique I learned. I went to the historic Hollywood Hotel on Melrose for 2 nights. I wish I could afford to stay there for 4 nights, but I pretty much slept in my car for 2 nights and stayed in that hotel for 2 nights. But it was pretty cool. The guy at the desk, he is a cool guy. I told him off the bat, as a hobby, I investigate ghosts for fun, but really it's more for fun. It's because in 2011, spirit entities bothered me. I was minding my own business, and my room was haunted. And ever since then, I considered getting something like this, but the first time I got something like this, as you can see, would have been about February of this year. So 2011 is when I was haunted in that room, and I didn't even take the leap to buy something like this until this year, the beginning of this year, to the point where I bought 2 of them. And it looks like fun and games, but what I was saying was the aspect that the ghost hunting shows leave out. It's obviously an aspect they leave out because you got Tide selling their clean clothing, little, we're talking pods where you clean your clothes. And they don't want to hear the downside on ghost investigating. They want to sell the product with a happy, fluffy show that's positive. So the advertisers are going to want a positive show. The TV, what is it? The Travel Channel is the channel with ghost adventures. They're going to want to have something positive and uplifting. But deep down, if you watch enough Ghost Adventures episodes, and if you look at the tweets of the Ghost Adventures crew, ghosts following me home, ha ha ha, that's not a joke. And you see the Ghost Adventures guys retweet something from the gift shop, the Haunted Mansion gift shop at Disneyland. The hitchhiker ghosts hitching a ride back to your place. It's all fun and games until it actually happens. As I said in a previous video, Zach Bagans was pulled out of his bed. But then again, he has a skull collection. I don't have a human skull collection. So yeah, whew, scary stuff. But the point of this video is ghosts exist. You can see them. There's a technique. Here it is. I'm going to share this technique with you. Your mom watches every Ghost Adventure show. Yep. That's cool. I watch everyone too. It's an entertaining show. They do a good job. So how to see ghosts. There's a technique I learned. You can try it out for yourself, but I have to give you a warning. Consider this something that might work too well. Don't practice this technique I'm about to share with you. Don't practice it religiously, would be my advice. I only tested this technique out on 2 days. I tested it out on October 2nd and October 3rd. I haven't consciously done it since. And October 1st is where I first heard this technique. The attendant in the Hollywood Hotel, the historic Hollywood Hotel established 1927, I heard it might be haunted. I looked at the rates. The rates are the same as Motel 6. I can go to some random Motel 6 for 2 nights, or for the same rate, I can go to the historic Hollywood Hotel for 2 nights, which might be haunted. It's been renovated and fixed up and cleaned. It's a very nice hotel. But I read a review. Someone said, oh, there's shadows in my room. They're creeping me out. 1 star. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what a ghost investigator wants, is shadows in their room. I have a shadow detector on this device. Let me show you what the shadow detector looks like. See, this is the top of the line. I'm not selling this. This is like a digital Ouija board. I'm only going to turn this on for demonstrative purposes, and I'm going to immediately turn it back off because I don't do investigations in my room anymore. Because I'd rather not know if there's a ghost in my room. Because, you know, in a couple hours, I might try to go to sleep knowing there's a ghost in your room. Although, you know, the ghosts in my room occasionally, they make themselves known. I hear boxes moving in that corner more than this corner. It used to be this corner. I set up this whole thing because this is the favorite corner of the spirits that enter my room, but occasionally they use that corner too, and they like shifting objects in that corner. It's freaky. It's a freaky thing. When you know it's not a moth or a spider, when you know it's a considerable shift of weight, you get freaked out pretty fast. But I was talking about shadows. The reviewer said, oh, there's shadows in my room. I've never heard on a review site someone complain of shadows, but that's what I read. And then I looked at the date, and the review was from like 2010, 2011 or something. So it was very old, before they renovated it, before they fixed it up. I'm going to close the antenna. I'm going to take off the feature that tells the temperature. I'm just going to turn on the, let's see, can't remember which one it is. Okay, here it is. It's called laser. So there's a laser. It's not just a regular laser. It's a laser grid. Now, you probably can't see it too good because my lights are on. But there it is. That's it. It's a laser grid. And this thing has a little screw you can put on a tripod. And if something goes between the laser, you can see it on my hand pretty good. If something goes between the laser, it beeps. It goes beep, 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 beep. And yeah, the first time I turned this on was in the corner of that room over there. And I was looking at my ceiling with it, and it kept going beep, 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 beep. And then I immediately turned it off. And I didn't film it. So therefore, there's no evidence of it. See, I like to, every time I have these things on, I like to film. But how to see ghosts is the topic of this video. The hotel lobby attendant, very nice guy. When he heard that I investigate ghosts for fun, I asked him, is it okay if I walk around with this? It's just an EMF device. And he's like, sure, go ahead. He's like, be respectful of the guests, but go ahead, it's fine. So I did investigate the halls at around 6 p.m. because I was going to a show at 8 p.m. And I wanted to get a good parking spot. But I did do a hallway investigation of every hall floor at the historic Hollywood Hotel. And I got a few minimal spikes, We're talking maybe 1.0, very low, very low. But it was 6 p.m. The best results are 3 a.m., 2 a.m. Some say 4 a.m. I'd say 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. is the window. If you want to see a ghost, 12 to 4. This is what the historic Hollywood Hotel lobby, I'm trying to think of the word, I guess, attendant, no, service desk individual, amazingly, I would give him 5 stars. He did a great job. He helped me out. He said he has seen a ghost. And I was like, wow, I've never seen a ghost. I told him that's extraordinarily rare. Seeing a ghost isn't something, even as a ghost investigator, I can't say that I've ever seen a full-bodied apparition. And he said, I can tell you how. And I was like, whoa, really? He said, come back later when you put your bags in your room, and I'll be happy to tell you. And I came back, I guess around 5 p.m. or something, and I said, hey, how do you see ghosts? And there was no one there, and he said, turn off your camera. He said, I have it on camera of him saying, turn it off the camera. He said, I'll tell you, but not on camera. And I said, sure, I'm not going to film it. But he had no problems with me telling the technique, but he gave me a warning. I'm going to give you guys the exact same warning. He said, be warned, this can blow open doors that maybe you can't close. So for him, this particular technique worked to an extreme degree. He saw a ghost with his friend. He said that's corroborating evidence. We both saw it at the same time. And I was like, wow. What's the story? He said, we tried out this technique. He said he noticed personally from his experience that this particular hotel, the historic Hollywood Hotel, isn't too haunted. He said it's not too haunted. He said he hasn't seen anything there. But I can tell you definitively that my check-in time was 3 p.m. And I believe 3:02 p.m. Well, this is what happened. At 2:59 p.m., I walked up to the desk and I said, I'm here for my 3 p.m. I was 1 minute early. He's like, I'll be right with you. I'll just take a seat. I took a seat and I sat there for 3 minutes, and a ghost walked through me back to front at 3:02 p.m. Now, how do I know that? Because I was keeping a journal, and I still am to an extent, but you can get pretty lazy after, what is this, day 19? I checked my phone. And my phone is off. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is working. If you see any glitches in this video, let me know, because I noticed my last live stream had a lot of glitches because I had both computers on, I had my phone on, I have it on airplane mode, and I have everything Wi-Fi turned off. So just this stream hopefully will hold together. But I checked my phone. So Brandon said his dad was a concierge at the Ritz-Carlton. That's cool, Ritz-Carlton. So far, no glitches. Thank you. So I checked my phone, 3:02 p.m. You got to understand, I've knowingly known that I have the ability to sense the energy of spirits walking through me since my 20s. Before my 20s, I could still feel it, but I didn't know what it was. And I was going to tell the story at the Comedy Store, but they kept cutting me off and telling jokes. At the Comedy Store, I didn't know if I'd ever get the mic. I know people grind as the doorman for a year straight before they can get 10 seconds on the mic. And I wasn't expecting mic time, but if you stay at the Comedy Store late enough, they will hand you the mic if you tell them you're a ghost investigator, just so they can laugh at you. And it was pretty cool. I was willing to trade off people laughing at me to have the mic and tell a few ghost stories, because I knew the ghost at the Comedy Store was listening to those stories. And perhaps the ghost of the Comedy Store would open up and feel comfortable showing me a glimpse. It reminds me of the Ghost Adventures episode when they went to the Winchester Mystery House for the second time. They're filming, and you can see like a phantom hand. Very freaky. They showed a glimpse because it was the second time. Perhaps they got to know the ghost and respect it enough to show itself. But I know I go off on tangents. But I guess the first time I noticed a ghost walking through me and acknowledging in my head the light bulb going off, that's a freaking ghost, is I was knocking on a door, which looked like a 50-year-old house, pretty old looking house, not ancient or anything, but by American standards, 50 years old. It's pretty old. Nobody answered. But a ghost answered. A ghost walked straight through me, maybe even twice, maybe front ways and back ways. And I put two and two together that, wow, a ghost just answered the door. Very freaky. Ever since then, I noticed, hey, that's an energy walking through me. Spirits walk on 2 feet. They walk through everybody, is my theory. But I have an origin story, and I'm going to make an entire video of my origin story. I go off on tangents. How to see ghosts. Let's go through the techniques on how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. Don't do it religiously. It involves meditation. It involves breathing, something very simple. But I'd never heard this tiny detail that this hotel guest concierge, if you will, I'd never heard this exact tiny meditative breathing technique ever. I consider it unique, the way he told it to me. And he said him and his friend saw a ghost. He used this technique. It worked. And he said, ghosts can manifest when there is water in the air, when at least easier, much more easily can manifest when there's water in the air, like a humid. If you have a humidifier in a room, supposedly there's a small chance of increased ghost. And that makes sense. It makes sense. I think I saw Unsolved Mysteries where someone filled the house with smoke and they could see the ghost walking in the smoke, and they saw it walk out the house as they hired some shaman lady, and she probably filled it with smoke. You know, the old burning of the stuff to get rid of an entity. Very common technique. The house was filled with so much of this smoke, they could see the entity walking in the smoke. It manifested with the help of the smoke. So perhaps smoke, water vapors, according to this guy, water vapors helps. And I will get to the technique on how to see ghosts, the breathing meditative technique. It's not just breathing, it's not just meditating. There's a tiny detail. I will get to it. But it reminds me of a review I read of the Haunted Mansion in Las Vegas. Someone left a negative review. They said, "Oh, this place is so corny. There's like spooky music piped in on the speakers, and there's like fog. They like blow fog into the rooms randomly for like a Halloween house effect." And I was like, wow, that is kind of dumb. Why would they blow smoke or fog, more specifically probably some type of water vapor from a fog machine, into some of the rooms at the Haunted Mansion? Perhaps Zach Bagans knows that that fog machine with the water vapors does help the spirits manifest, even if but a little bit. So perhaps it may be hokey to one person that doesn't experience anything, but to Zach Bagans, he has a camera in the corner of every single room, multiple cameras. And I can tell you this. I looked at the footage of Zach Bagans opening up or touching the Dybbuk box, the apparently most haunted object in his museum, according to the lore and legend of it, the origin story of the movie, the possession is inspired by the Dybbuk box, a Jewish box supposedly holding a Dybbuk, which is a demonic type spirit in the Jewish belief. Very scary stuff. Now, Zach Bagans, he shelled out tens of thousands of dollars for it, and he has it. And he was drinking with his friend Post Malone. And that was on, I'm going to do a video review of this video. You've probably heard of it. You've probably seen it. And I can see orbs in that whole shot. You can see orbs flying all around. I don't know if that room has piped in fog machine just left over from the day. Personally, if I had a $50,000 box, I probably wouldn't destroy it with a humidifier, but I don't know. Maybe he keeps it leveled like a cigar box, but seems like it would damage the haunted relics that he has stored there. So back to how to see ghosts, how to see ghosts for paranormal investigations. This is the technique. The hotel lobby, really helpful attendant, check-in concierge at the historic Hollywood Hotel, established 1927 on Melrose, told me. He said, "You breathe in and you breathe out." And I was like, "That's it?" He's like, "No." He said, "When you're breathing in, picture breathing in some type of cosmic dust in the universe that's everywhere. And then exhale." And he really focused on this cosmic dust. He said, while your physical lungs are inhaling air, oxygen, components in the air, he said your spirit lungs, independent of your physical lungs, are inhaling some type of spirit matter that is throughout the entire universe, almost a Star Wars midichlorians type analogy. And you're breathing in this space dust that's everywhere. I mean, no matter where you go, there's going to be invisible particles. Even quantum physicists, scientists will admit there are these particles everywhere. And he said, the way to really blow open the door is to not just breathe in and out, but try to keep a steady pace of breathing in and out. He said, while you're doing it, hold your breath like this. And repeat. And just keep that holding of the breath pace. I'm sure this is a technique taught to monks of varying disciplines. I know of a surety Buddhism has something similar, but I never heard of it employed specifically for the purpose of seeing ghosts. He said him and his friend did that. The holding of the breath, the breathing in of this invisible energy of the universe, this invisible dust, like space dust almost. Breathe it in, hold it, and I did this. I was like, I'm nothing to lose. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, I have something to talk about. I went to the Comedy Store 2 hours later after he told me this information. I had to get a good parking spot. There's no parking on Sunset. I went up to I found a parking meter spot. I don't know how much it cost me, probably $20 of parking meter fees. I had to go back, refill it, re-up it. So I was at the Comedy Store from 7 p.m. to 2:45 a.m. I was there all day. And I didn't have a chance to use this technique on October 1st. That's right. Okay. So the timelines might be off a little bit. I heard this information on October 2nd. So October 2nd, I did it. We're talking for, I got into 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. I used this technique for 6 hours. Nothing. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. Nothing. But there is a creepy vibe there. There's definitely a creepy vibe. But I did it again on October 3rd. But before I went there, I went to the Viper Room. I'm wearing the Viper Room t-shirt on Sunset, the same street as the Comedy Store. I was looking for a good parking spot. I didn't want to do the $20 worth of meter. The close right next to the Comedy Store is $27 from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. is $27. I was like, I don't want to do that. I found a mall with parking just down a ways, close to the Viper Room, close-ish. A good 3 blocks from the Viper Room, but I didn't know this. And I found out that parking was like $13. So that's the cheapest parking to the Comedy Store. And I checked every sign. You have to have a permit in the housing districts. So anyways, I'm walking down the street. I have time to kill, and I see the Viper Room. I was like, oh man, I want to investigate that Viper Room, you know. Rest in peace. River Phoenix unfortunately passed away on the sidewalk outside of the Viper Room back in the 90s. Was it 90? You can look it up. It's a very sad story. But it's a legendary place. It's a legendary 90s club on Sunset. So I went in and I didn't want to be overbearing because the night before, the Comedy Store people, they gave me the mic. I told a couple ghost stories. I told them I'm a ghost investigator. Then at 2:40 a.m., I went to my car. I got my Mel meter, and I proceeded to do a sidewalk investigation. The manager locking up said, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't do that here. You can't do that." Well, it's public property. I was just on the sidewalk. But they were very defensive. So I was at the Viper Room. I didn't want to break out the Mel meter and get them kicking me out. I just wanted to sit there. I got a cider, and I tried to make friends with I said, "Hey, is it still happy hour?" I got a cider because I didn't want to get wasted. A cider isn't going to do much. So I had one apple juice, I call it, and I tried to make friends with the place. And the bartender of the Viper Room is a really cool guy. He was in the Wildabouts with Scott Weiland. He was the bass player of the Wildabouts, a very famous rock and roll club. A lot of rock kids go there to try to make it. I guess it's a popular venue for kids. Some kids were practicing. I was there for the happy hour. The bartender said, "Yeah, I'm trying this new happy hour thing out." And I was like the only happy hour customer, except for a couple tourists from Australia or maybe Canada. I wasn't paying too close attention to them. I was just trying to get the vibe of the Viper Room. And the Viper Room vibe, to be honest, is very similar to the vibe of the Comedy Store. All black walls. You could tell just people drink and smoke there, and there's probably no smoking. It didn't smell like smoke. Just it had a vibe of just a kind of a, they keep it up the best they can, but kind of just a regular bar with black walls. And but I saw the Ghost Adventures episode where they went through the place, and the place looks pretty big until you get there. It's very small, very small. We're talking to the bar stool to the stage it's very close, very small club. But I got to talking to the bartender, very cool guy. I told him I'm a ghost investigator for hobby reasons. I said, you noticed any ghost activity? He's like, maybe, I don't know. I told him I can sense ghosts. And he's like, that's cool. And he said, don't film for a YouTube channel or anything. I said, I'm not going to, don't worry about it. I asked if I could take like a selfie. He's like, yeah, sure. And the nice couple took a picture of me there. And I went to the restroom. I bought this shirt and I put it on, That's kind of how you make friends with that place. I got a shirt. I was a paying customer. And I said, hey, can I look for ghosts? I'm not going to use any equipment, no cameras. Can I just walk around? He's like, sure, go ahead. He's like, hey, you can go in the basement. And he was going to give me a full tour of the basement. And then we're talking 10 seconds after he said that, his boss showed up. And he's like, oh, well, maybe I got to get the keg for the... So I got there before the busy hour. People were lining up outside, I guess, for a show. So as long as you're there when it's not busy, they will give you access if you're nice. He was going to give me a tour of the basement. I told him I can sense spirits. I can sense spirits to the point where I can walk into a dark basement. I'll know exactly what corner. You can almost feel. Everyone has the ability to an extent. But if you want to try out the technique of how to see ghosts, don't do it on a regular basis. I've only done it 2 days. So I told the guy I got to go to the Comedy Store. I went there. It was actually on the 3rd, October 3rd. And I breathed in. And I held my breath a good 100 times, probably from the time of 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I saw something, but it wasn't immediate. They put me up front on the right side, so I got to see a profile view of every comedian. And not the best view. I say the only benefit of that seat is you can't see the green light behind you, knowing the comedian has to leave after a minute or two. That green light means they have 3 minutes. Really funny comedians, Brad Williams, Whitney Cummings. Whitney Cummings had a lot of Marilyn Monroe jokes. They were pretty hilarious. And Marilyn Monroe was actually at that club, the Comedy Store, when it was called Ciro's in the 50s. But anyway, I breathed in and I breathed out. Nothing. And then about maybe 1:45 a.m., I went to the restroom. I came back. I'm like, hey, there's only 5 people here. I'm sitting wherever I want. So I sat near the back. You can't sit in the back row. That's for the comedians that work there. But I sat to the second back row, the farthest back a customer can sit. And I just casually watched the show, but I did the breathe in, breathe out technique. Now, I did have a 2-drink minimum of cider, but this was like 4 hours prior. We're talking 4 hours of nothing. I didn't have anything to eat. I didn't have anything to drink. A good 4-hour window. Trust me, with my weight, 3 ciders isn't going to do anything. So I had a cider around, what was it, 6-ish, 6:45-ish. And then I had another cider probably at 8:15 and 9:30-ish, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So about 2 a.m., 5 hours after my third cider, and I didn't get anything with high alcohol content, very low. We're talking, tastes like apple juice, apple soda, very wimpy stuff. I did the breathe in, breathe out technique many times, and I saw something out of the corner of my eye do this. And I looked, and I saw nothing. It happened again. I looked, I saw nothing. And then I saw what looked like a person standing there. It definitely had the presence of a male. I thought it was a comedian waiting to go on next. I thought it was a regular person waiting to go on next. I turned, and they weren't there. And then I turned back, watching the comedian. The comedians that go on at 2 a.m. are not the same. It's not the same as a rock show. On a rock show, the headliners go on last. But in comedy, the headliners don't go last. In the comedy world, the headliners go whenever they want. They know there's a time slot where people will be drinking the most, filling the club. They're not going to go on at an empty club with 5 people. So the empty club with 5 people comedians are on at this point. And I don't think there even was. There was not. This was the final comedian of the night. But this figure, I turned, saw like this, just this thing. And then I saw an arm in a black suit, and I saw a Caucasian hand. And to be honest, for a split second, it felt like it was reaching a good, we're talking this person, if they were solid, they would have been a good 4 feet away from me, 4 feet to the right of me. And I was in the back. And I saw not a face, not feet, just a shadowy figure silhouette of a person at the corner of my eye. But I saw enough to see their hand out of a suit coat. But most of the time, it was just something moving. I thought it was like a waitress at first. I thought it was someone standing waiting to go on next. Every time I turned my head, it disappeared. And every time I turned back, it didn't reappear. It took its sweet time. And I did at least 5 double takes. We're talking over the space of 10 minutes. And I'm surprised the comedians behind me didn't notice me looking at nothing. When the comedian saw that I was the ghost hunter, the night of October 1st and 2nd, he's like, oh, well, on the 2nd, he's like, you're the ghost hunter. Let's talk. And they like to make fun of me. So I told them I saw something. And the time frame was about, was it 2:15 a.m.? Somewhere around 2:15 a.m. I saw the thing. And lining it up with Bobby Lee's story. Bobby Lee was in the original room when he saw Gus the Ghost for the, I don't know if it was the first or second time. I don't know the timeline of his ghost sightings, but he's one of the few comedians that will even mention it because it's a taboo subject even at the Comedy Store. I didn't know this. I didn't know it's a taboo subject. I thought the month of October, Halloween, that they would freely talk about it, but they do not. They discourage talking about it unless you have a mic and you're making jokes. If you don't have a mic and are making jokes, they really don't want you to talk about it. At least the close-up manager very much discourages it. Because after I saw that, the guy's like, you're the ghost hunter. I said, yeah. I said, hey, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. It's not the same as a full body manifestation, but I can't discount the fact that I did employ the techniques. That hotel lobby guy, he's almost like a movie character in how he was over the top wanting to share with me. He's not a ghost. He's a real person, but he definitely had a ghost persona about him. He was dressed all perfectly, and he shared with me that technique. You breathe in, you hold it, and don't hold it too long. I don't want to encourage anyone to have any issues, but yeah, it happened. It worked to an extent, although I can't guarantee it's what caused me to see it. But I've only tried the technique twice, and it worked to an extent. I don't see ghosts. That's the thing. I don't see them. I've seen a couple shadow people out of the corner of my eye in the space of many, many years. I've had maybe 3 shadow people encounters of barely seeing something shadowy running. They're usually running. This ghost was just standing there, no running. And the comedian who I was talking to, he said, "Wow, the ghost, he's toying with you. He's playing with you. He's messing with you." And I said, "Yeah, pretty much." But I'm surprised that the spirit, and I can tell you, I'm surprised it showed anything to me, because comedians that have worked there for 10 years straight have heard nothing and seen nothing. But I was dedicated 3 days in a row going there from 7 to 3, basically, give or take. And okay, you saw a ghost or a shadow figure at a funeral home at work just a few weeks ago. Because considering making a video about it to explain the details of it all. The one you saw ran. Interesting. Yeah. I have seen a couple shadow people, and I can never remember them not running. I almost see them in the running position. Very interesting. I saw one run, what seemed to be run through my window. I was outside, just getting some fresh air. Actually breathing in and out, to be honest. And I turned and I saw what looked like a shadow person. I would describe it as a someone on a track, literally like a track and meet, athletic Olympic professional, because they had that stance, they had that run, and it ran straight into my window, disappeared. Freaky stuff. I've heard some religious groups say spirits hang out in windows, like in window sills. I don't know how that works. I've never heard that except for this one video that Brandon Young shared with me. Interesting stuff. You can't discount every mythological thing, I guess, you know. But the first shadow person I remember seeing, maybe not the first, I guess I saw someone walk past the kitchen when I was in the kitchen when I was a kid. And I was like, "Oh, who's there?" And no one was there. So that's possibly the first shadow type person I've ever seen. But the first shadow person I really saw was when I was with my friend, and I saw this shadow figure running, and they ran straight into the house. And I said, "Hey, whoa, what's going on?" You freaked me out. I'm telling this ghost story. I'm like, where is the sound coming from?
Oh, sorry.
Man, I thought you were like a ghost messing with my mic or something.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so let me just finish this story. I saw a ghost run into my friend's house. I said, "Hey," his name is Mike. I said, "Hey, Mike, is there anyone at your house?" He's like, "No." And I checked the house. There was no one. Very freaky stuff. So, Brandon, yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
You want to talk about anything in particular, like ghosts? Have you ever seen a ghost? You have seen spirit type creatures. Do you have any commentary on this breathing technique I heard from this guy?
Yeah, I do actually, in fact. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. this past week. Now, before I share this, I'm going to just say, no one do this. And I'm not going to share the link or anything, but there are a lot of YouTube videos where people say it's like guided meditation, visualization, astral travel. And I never, ever tried any of them. But I thought this week, I said, oh, I'm going to try them. I'll give them a try, see if they work, you know? And, you know, as you know, John, I think, or people might not know, but I've been studying meditation for a long time, you know, since I was like 6th grade, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've been on silent retreats. So I know, you know, what it can do. And I honestly got scared of it because I didn't have a guide or a teacher for a while. And so anyway, long story short, I just got back into it this week, and I started listening to these holosync, hemisync YouTube. They're not ASMR. It's like
The Gamma Theta, like just the 5-hour videos where you can meditate with them.
Yeah, stuff like exactly something like along that lines. And for this one worked, and I've been having the most crazy dreams and the most intense experiences in that in-between state where you're awake and aware, but it's just like meditation. It's like you're in there, your consciousness is there, but it's somewhere else, and you feel these different things. And I've seen, there's one, and I don't think I'm going to do it again. There's one video where it's like, oh, contact your spirit guide. So I was like, oh, let's
Don't do that. I don't recommend it.
guess what my spirit guide was?
What?
A snake. It was a giant. It was a cobra. It was a giant cobra, because this visualization, you get into this meditative state, and the guy's like, he suggests things like, and now if you see your spirit guide, ask it, reach out to it, touch it. I was like, whoa, this is getting creepy, man, because mine was a snake and it wanted to eat me. It was crazy. It was like these crazy. Luckily, you know, I held on to my rosary at the same time, and I was very hesitant. I still had the will to like be like, oh, I'm not going to touch this thing, you know, but I see it, you know. It's weird. So that was just the past week. So in that, you have to, in getting in meditation, that's the thing you return to over and over again, is the concentration of the breath. But what the concierge at the Hollywood Hilton Hotel,
The historic Hollywood Hotel.
the HH, yeah. You know, he said to like imagine cosmic dust, but what I was taught to think of is water. Imagine like water, and you mentioned water, like imagine water washing all over you. Imagine that flowing through your fingertips and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's a very treacherous area. You can see entities, you can see these things, but it's not worth the risk, you know, because they can haunt you. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched enough videos of people having encounters in their room enough to know there are some freaky encounters people have had. They've happened to me, but I don't see them optically. I know there's this one guy named Nick. I can't remember his last name, but I guess he's a tarot card expert. He said he saw a red skeleton manifest in his room. I can tell you one thing. I don't want to be going to sleep and seeing red skeletons freaking haunting me. That'd be a little bit freaky. And what you said, a freaking cobra. I have a game with a cobra on the cover. Let me go get it and tell me if it looks anything like that. Let me go get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even in the depictions of the Buddha, you have the cobra over him. So it's almost like he's gone beyond the 7 chakras or whatever. And this thing was to raise your kundalini. And I felt it. I actually felt it. It felt like a warm energy all around me. It's weird, but don't do it. It's terrible. It's not real. Rare.
Right. So this is a very common game. It's my favorite game, actually.
Oh,
It's
cool.
called Serpenile.
Oh,
So did it look
whoa.
anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was big. It was like big, and it didn't have the mean face though. It didn't have like that looks like it's ready to kill you.
So was it like a nice,
Um,
friendly
it was
cobra?
it was like it wasn't friendly or it wasn't hostile either. It was just indifferent. It's like,
Hey,
you know.
you know that book, that freaking necromancy book I have? He said that this order worshipped a black
Oh
cobra-looking
my god.
snake with red eyes.
Oh
What
wow.
what color was it?
It wasn't black. I know that. It wasn't black. It didn't have red eyes either. It was green. It was like a green, just like you showed. It was like more of a green, dark green colors, but there were maybe black scales here and there. But
Like, did you
um,
see it in your head or with your eyeballs? How'd you see it?
it's tough to say. I mean, I saw it in my mind, I guess.
Mhm.
It wasn't like no, it wasn't like I was fully aware and like I am talking to you right now, and there's a snake right there. It wasn't like that. It was in the
Yeah.
in between state. It was in a meditative state, so it was. I don't. It was in my mind, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's yeah.
I'd say definitely 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100. When you're in a meditative state, images flash in your head. And as for me, I wouldn't be able to tell if it's my imagination or an entity, but most definitely these entities can flash any image they want in your head. And in the future, I will tell. I had 2 images flashed in my head in 2011 when I was poltergeist haunted. So we have these entities knocking over stuff, but only twice in the space of 6 months did they flash something in my head. I drew pictures of what they flashed. They're going to be in my book.
Wow.
They do have that ability. And Zach Bagans, if you want to, I know I kind of go back to Ghost Adventures too much, but he says stuff flashes in his head all the time when he's doing a ghost investigation. Like at the haunted house in what is it, San Jose? What's that house called? It's called the
Oh
Winchester Mystery
yeah,
House.
yeah, yeah.
He said he saw a little boy, and upon playing back the video, you can see an orb. So he said the entity flashed the image of how he wanted it to be seen in his head. But it's interesting; it was picked up on camera as an orb.
Hmm.
So I think orbs can be either way. They can be just random specks of moisture, but if they can be intelligent, proven to be intelligent, they can be representations of a spirit. We can't see the whole thing. Sometimes you can see a tiny glimmer of that higher dimensional entity. And I don't know if they do it on purpose or it's an accident.
Hmm.
But wow, it's an interesting story. So is that your spirit guide? That snake?
I don't. Well, the other thing, the other image I had was, remember the opening scene to Dark Knight Rises? I think it was, where Bane is in the helicopter and he's like taking the doctor with him on like
No.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know if I
All
saw
right,
that.
the Christopher Nolan films. Anyway, but uh, it felt like I was reaching up, like this, like reaching up, and someone was grabbing my hand, like almost like the Sistine Chapel, like how their God is reaching out to Adam and they're almost touching. But this guy was holding on to me and he was bringing me up, like way up in the and like I was, and it was like a cry. I swear to God, and this is probably just because this is my archetypical imagery, my affect imagery, or whatever you want to call it. It was like Jesus. It was Jesus, and I swear I would never say this if it weren't true. I don't think it would. I don't think it was the Jesus, the real Jesus. I think this was an image composite being used. It was a cross between Jesus, but like that could fly. So it was Superman. It was like taking off like Superman. I was like, this is too car. This is in the dream or in the state. I'm thinking this is too cartoony, you know. And at the same time, John, right? I have this feeling. There's this heat, energy, like almost like the energy ball people talk about, but it's on your chest. It was on my chest and it was getting broader, and like I could feel it move all the way up to the back of my head like this, and it was moving all the way up, and I felt it tingle all over in my body. And at the same time, I'm having this visualization of me flying away with this character. I'm like, what in the you
Wow.
know, yeah, these. So I don't recommend, because I'm so easily triggered into those type of states, I guess, you know.
Yeah, be careful with that.
Mm.
You know, the back of the upper spine where it meets the skull. They talk about that in this voodoo book that I
Yes.
read, and it's very commonly known amongst, I guess, Vodon uh, masters and whatnot. But I can sense spirits walk through me. But more specifically, I would say I could really tell the back of my spine and the bottom of my skull. I could feel it focus. It walked through me, and I could feel that area be focused on,
Interesting.
almost to the point where it almost felt like it's using me as a portal and walking into this world using me. Now, I'm not possessed, freaky subject, but just reading that Vodon book, piecing two and two together, I hope I am not a portal for spirits. Okay,
Yeah.
we have a really good question here. And Nikki says her spirit guide is probably a honey badger. But Yo-Yo says that the back of your walls look green to him. They look yellow to me. What color are your walls?
Yellow.
Okay. And he says, do you have a theory concerning wall colors? I could say it's not connected to corners of rooms, but I do have a wall color theory, and I'm sure Brandon has a wall color theory. Brandon, do you want to share yours first? Or
Well, real quick, yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of, like, rock stars have different rooms painted different colors, and there's been different people throughout history that had different rooms. Like there was the red room. I think John Lennon had a white room where it was all white. So that different brings a different energy. But yeah, go ahead, John.
oh yeah, it's a good point. John Lennon had a white piano, and everything in the room was all white. I'm sure that would bring a different type of energy in the room. See, I was ignorant of wall colors meaning anything up until about, I don't know, 2 years ago. Actually, it was probably a year and a half ago. I ripped down my green screen on my wall right there. I ripped down the black corner of my old set right there. And I had a blue screen with a red screen in front of it. What happened was I tried out the blue screen just for regular video editing reasons, and it didn't work so great. So I put up the red screen and it worked better. And the PYRAMIDICAL this guy works best with a red background when you're doing the chroma key special effects because he's green. So obviously green wouldn't work. And blue is too close to green, so blue wouldn't work. So I had to use red. And this is an Illuminati puppet. The purpose of it was a joke, but some people didn't get
Yeah,
the joke.
I love
Anyway,
Pyramar. It's good to see him.
so I ripped down the red, I ripped down the blue, forgetting it was even there. I ripped down the black, and then I ripped down. I taped this stuff to my wall, thinking, oh, it's not there's not pinholes, but now I got to repaint my walls because pieces of paint came off with the wall, and I have to repaint the whole wall anyway. The night I pulled everything down, and I'm familiar with spirits entering my room because it happens these days. It happens once a month, maybe once every 2 months if I'm lucky. But at this point, it didn't happen that frequently. I don't know why the frequency these days, but this has died down since the Mysterialis corner room experiment number one, corners of rooms experiment number one, we're talking, this entity came back every week. The entity that set off my REM pod, or the REM pod knockoff, whatever it was, it came back every week after I did that, to the point where I stopped all investigations in my room, and it hasn't been back in easily 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I haven't been keeping track, but it's been a couple months, and I'm glad. But the night I ripped down all these, and it could have been related to that, I can't remember the time frame, but I ripped down my green screen wall, I ripped down the black and a little bit of red and blue, and that night there was a lot of activity in my room. It's almost as if the spirit showed up in the corner of my room. I could hear creaks. And I almost got to hear the reaction to the spirits. The spirits are like, "What the heck? He remodeled the place. Oh no, he remodeled. My favorite green wall is gone. My black corner. I like to stalk him in that black corner. It's gone. What's going on?" I heard dings and knocks, bangs, dings and knocks. And let me tell you the favorite object these freaking spirits like to ding, and it's particularly loud. It's my lamp. These spirits love my lamp to the point where I think I'm not someone that believes in haunted objects too much, unless it's a book that's been perhaps ritually used, which I try to get rid of a book. If I have a book in my collection that I feel was ritually used to an extent, I had an experience with that. But this is the lamp. Let me grab it.
Yeah.
I can't show too much of the lamp.
Oh, it's that lamp.
Can you see the lamp?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to show the lamp on camera.
Oh, it's that lamp they like. Okay.
This is the lamp that almost like we're talking once every 4 months, maybe every 6 months, 5 months. It's very spaced out. Perhaps the same spirit every time. Perhaps it's like a marker every spirit has to bother me with, but maybe they like the reflectiveness, the mirror aspect to it. But I hear this.
Wow.
That loud. And I'm over there, I'm like, whoa, what the heck, dude? But I've heard this a good 10 times. And the night that I pulled down this, I heard it like twice. And actually, the night that I was setting up this wall, this one right here, I heard a squeak come from this lamp. It sounded like a nut being turned internally, a nut that I don't even know if it exists. I mean, I'm sure it exists because I heard it. It made a blood-curdling, nails on chalkboard, really loud. And then, as if that's not enough, I moved the lamp, and then I finished on the bottom taping these pieces of paper I cut out. And then the next night, I heard it again. Twice. Actually, the first night it was twice. The second night it was once. So I heard some screw sound, and there's definitely a nut here, and I've never opened it up. But there's clearly a screw that spirits, they have x-ray vision. Spirits can walk through objects, and they're like, oh, I can freak them out with that. And they did. I gotta put it back. So it's a pretty expensive lamp. It's from around 1969. It's a pretty old lamp. It's called a Sputnik lamp. I got it in North Hollywood. I only paid like $75 for it. I got a really good deal. I checked eBay and it's worth like $300 or something. I don't know.
Are those actually bulbs that you have to specially get, or?
Yeah, these bulbs, as far as I know, they're original from 1969.
Oh, wow.
But like 3 of them were out. So I went to the store and I bought 3. And then about a year later, they banned the sale of regular old-fashioned light bulbs. So now if they go out, I can't buy any replacements because the government.
Make your own filament or something.
I'm sure there are pirate underground black market light bulb stores. I can get it somewhere. But I haven't had any super ghostly encounters, although, I do hear few and far between. Depends. I don't really like to glorify it because maybe they're listening and they'll try to just make it worse, but it's nothing compared to being haunted for 6 months. Nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you see my Hollywood Boulevard video?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
I'm gonna re-upload it because I think it was just uploaded at a bad time.
Yeah.
2 p.m. on a Thursday. That's just a bad time frame.
Yeah, I think the work week, Yeah.
Yeah, so I will upload it. I did edit it. I added a couple parts, took out a couple boring parts, but it's still just me walking down the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna tell my story. Unless you want to share something.
No, go ahead. No, go
ahead. As concerning the wall colors, though, I think there definitely is an occult aspect to it. Yeah, I remember Crispin Glover. I can't remember her name. She plays Marty McFly's, like Leah Tom.
Oh,
Leah,
yeah.
What's her name? She plays the mom of Marty McFly.
Lena, maybe? I don't know.
I can't remember. I can Google it. Let me Google it because I don't want to disrespect,
Yeah, Back to the Future.
I am a big Back to the Future fan, but I purposely, her name is Leah Thompson.
Oh.
So back in the day, Crispin Glover, Leah Thompson, Marty McFly, a.k.a. Michael J. Fox, they're filming this movie. Crispin Glover tries to get a date with Leah Thompson.
Oh,
so he invites her to his house. She said there's like a black wall and a red wall, just really freaky wall painted all over the place. And this guy, I'm sure, is not a stranger to the occult. His company is called Volcanic Eruptions. I have one of his books. He definitely has a dark side to him that I don't know if it's for just, you could tell he's into horror movies. He's into painting his walls black and red. I don't know if he knows if that has anything to do with the occult, but the Comedy Store has black walls. The Viper Room has black walls. Perhaps, actually, I did read this. I read it in one of my occult books. It said that in ancient times, now I call medieval times ancient times. Maybe medieval isn't the best ancient. I call it ancient times, whatever. In medieval times, certain astrologers would paint the wall black for the spirit of Saturn to show up. Black and Saturn were associated. And Mars was obviously red. And I think the moon was white. I can't remember. Back then, they considered the moon no different than a planet in the astrological thing. And
I think Venus was green or something like that, right? Or
yeah, so Venus could have been white. I can't remember. I'm not an expert at it. It's the old system when there was only 7 planets.
Yep.
And they considered the moon one of those planets. The old system of astrology, they supposedly summoned the spirit of Saturn with black. And so maybe the spirit of Saturn, to some extent, likes to show up at places, hang out at places, but I didn't get an extreme ability to investigate the Comedy Store. It's all right. I will post the video. I'll tell my stories. I'll tell everything that happened. I did walk in the gift shop with the camera. They were mad at me. I'll cut the footage before I enter. There's literally 1 minute of footage of me walking up the steps and then leaving. It's not sensational. It's not interesting. I accidentally had the camera on thinking it was the gift shop only. And yeah, they were mad at me. But I told them I'm a customer with tickets. I'm just a tourist with a camera. But they were freaked out by this. They were really freaked out by the millimeter. Oh, yeah. I was going to tell some stories about Hollywood Boulevard. So on Hollywood Boulevard, it's just a walk of fame. No big deal. But I've walked those streets at 1 a.m. at least a good, we're talking a ridiculous amount of times, maybe 15 times. I just want to get a feel of what it's like. Some nights you'll see two teenagers with a guitar that clearly didn't make their dream. They're begging for money. It's a sad thing to see. There was a real cool homeless guy that told me his name was Columbus. And I was like, wow, Columbus. He discovered America to an extent, if you don't count Amerigo Vespucci. But he was a very cool guy, Columbus. He's like, oh, are you a musician? Are you an actor? He probably said that to everyone. He probably has his line. Everyone's a musician. Everyone's an actor if they're walking down that street. But I saw a good number of celebrities. I saw the High School Musical kid, not knowing who he is. I just happened to be standing next to a TMZ guy with a camera. And the TMZ guy said, oh, that's that guy. And I was like, who's that? He's like, High School Musical. I'm like, what's that? And this guy. But
I don't know.
sad story is it's the guy that died.
Oh.
So I saw the High School Musical guy that died before he died. And this is how I saw him. Coming out of a club with two girls, one girl in each arm.
Wow.
Getting into a Bronco, a black Bronco type vehicle. And I was like, wow, good. Yeah. I guess that's what you get when you're on TV. You get two girls. And the TMZ guy didn't even film him. I'm like, are you gonna film him? He's like, no, we're waiting for Leo. And Leo has a secret exit. No one saw Leo. So we stood there for 30 minutes waiting for Leo, but Leo knows the club. They have a secret celebrity exit that goes straight to the limo. So there's probably 1 second where you can see him to the limo. I didn't see him. TMZ guys didn't see him. And I've seen a couple other celebrities. No big deal. I don't want to name drop or anything, but I guess the coolest celebrity I saw was Slash with his leather top hat. I saw Slash.
You sure it was him?
Yeah, it was the Slash because he came out of the Jimmy Kimmel doors.
Oh, cool.
The front doors that they never open. They open up the front doors, there's Slash, and he burned the shoes for the Dancing with the Stars people that got kicked off the show. It was a bit for the Jimmy Kimmel show. And Guillermo came out, and I shook Guillermo's hand, and that was cool. So I got to see Guillermo. I got to see Slash, and I was literally 5 feet from Slash. They had no security, but they just, it was pretty cool. Wow. They had a dumpster and they burned the shoes, but it was a prop. I guess they extinguished it after a few seconds, but that was cool. And I did see a world premiere of something. Just the people go in. I wasn't invited. And I saw a couple random celebrities there. No big deal. Doesn't matter. But I saw Anthony Michael Hall at the Chinese Theater with the handprints. And I saw him the night before at a restaurant outside of Universal Studios. And I saw him at a restaurant. I was like, I'm not going to bother this guy. He's at a restaurant with his girlfriend. So I didn't. I just let him be. And it was an outside restaurant where he's right there next to the shopping mall. So other people, I'm sure, recognized him. But I had him on my head thinking, oh, he's in town. So I'm walking down, and there he is. And he's showing his girlfriend all the tourist spots. Universal Studios, the Japan's Chinese Theater. He's purposely trying to show off that he's famous. So he was happy when I recognized him, just for his girlfriend's sake. And I said, hey, Anthony. I said it real quiet. I was like, hey, Anthony Michael Hall, how's it going? And I got a picture with him, and he fist bumped me. And when he fist bumped me, this is no joke, I felt like a spiritual energy.
Whoa.
So I don't know what that means, if he's a spiritual guy, or it could be some negative thing. I don't know. It was odd. So it could have been a negative entity attached. But that's jumping overboard. He's a good guy. He's a positive guy. But it felt there's something strange about it. It was strange. It was I don't fist bump and feel energy exchanged often. That's rare,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen a couple other celebrities. No big deal. Doesn't matter. But I walked those streets at 1 a.m. and I did pick up on the millimeter some pretty interesting stuff. Um, I did like I've seen crazy stuff. One time I was walking back. It might have even been the night I saw the High School Musical guy kid. I'm walking back to my car. I help David Liebe Hart from the Hollywood Bowl to his house sometimes. That's how no, it was the second time I met David Liebe Hart. I went to the Hollywood Bowl for a show. I saw it. It was, you don't want to know the show. Do you want to know the name of the show?
Yeah, why not?
Kind of corn. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But it was a she and him show with Zoe Deschanel. You know that band?
Oh yeah. They did a show. Okay.
This was years ago when they were brand new.
Yeah, they're great.
And I didn't know anything about them, but I was a fan of her movies, and I thought I'd give it a shot because I'd never been to the Hollywood Bowl, so it's kind of a win-win. So I saw it; they were cool. They had other bands before them and after them, but it was still really cool, a cool show. And I walk out, and I didn't know David Lee Hart does his. He basically does gospel music, like we're talking 75% of his catalog is hymns that he belts out at the top of his lungs. So we have a bunch of Hollywood elite walking down. Hollywood elite that normally might not be into that, but he's belting out hymns at the top of his lungs,
Yeah.
Blessed be, praise, whatever. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not making fun of him. He's a spiritual guy. He's a cool guy. I was like, whoa, David Liebe Hart. He's like, yeah, that's me. I said, how's it going? And I think I bought one of his CDs for $5. And he said, hey, can you give me a ride home? I said, sure, why not? So I waited like an hour of all things. Jeez Louise, he has to wait for the last customer to get the maximum. He doesn't sell as many CDs as he gets donations. People know him as a regular there. And he said he only has licenses to work in two places, the Hollywood Bowl and the La Brea Tar Pits.
Oh, wow.
He said Hollywood Boulevard itself, all of the caricatures, it depends on the month if they're cracking down or allowing them to do it.
Wow.
The rules change so much, and none of those people have permits, according to David Liebe Hart. He said he's been kicked off Hollywood Boulevard before. But I waited to the end, and we're talking like 5 years later. He shares something with me. He said, guess what? I was like, what? And I sort of became friends with him because I drive him home, and we sort of became friends to an extent. And he said, I met Zoe Deschanel. I was like, whoa, really? That's cool. I told him I went to one of her shows before before I drove you home on that at the Hollywood Bowl. He's like, yeah. He said before the show, she showed up early. And she said, oh, let me look at your CDs. And of course, David Liebe Hart has to like throw in a story that he made up off this. He's like, oh, she flirted with me. She was totally into me. Like I'm like, David Liebe Hart, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said she took 2 CDs and she didn't pay for them and she just walked away.
No way. Oh my God.
But knowing David Liebe Hart, he was starstruck and he just gave it to her.
Yeah, sure.
That's what happened.
Oh my God.
But I thought it's pretty funny that she got a CD the same day I did walking out. I paid for it though. But like no one gets a CDs, they just throw money in. And Dr. Steve Brule?
Yeah.
He threw $20 in one time.
Oh, really?
But he did work with David Lee Hart.
Yeah.
David has been on a couple episodes of Dr. Steve Brule's show. Check it out. Yeah. So it's I don't know, the dynamic is strange because he's a very prolific actor, and then he sees his co-star just begging for money. It's kind of sad situation.
Well, I think one of the shows was like Steve Brule. He's like afraid of puppets, and that's all David Lee. But one of the things that David Lee Hart does his puppets, and Steve Brule's like, oh no, he's like afraid of him and stuff.
That's funny.
Oh man, but yeah, David Liebe Hart, he's a character, all right.
Yeah,
That's
he's
for
a cool
sure.
dude.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I tried calling him, and you can't call him anymore unless you have the same area code as him.
Oh really?
So he
That's
got
weird.
so much spam that he must have told Verizon to block any number that isn't his local number.
Oh wow.
Because his number, you can Google it in 5 seconds.
Oh wow.
And he said he gets like 10 fans a day calling him. And
Oh,
I've
geez.
heard some of the voicemails. I've heard some of them.
Oh man.
But I wanted to call him to investigate the Dixboro. The Dixboro is a
Yeah.
1922 building, and the Dixboro is probably haunted.
Yeah.
He said a bunch of black and white film stars used to live there. When it was the heyday, it was actually a nice place.
Mhm.
And it's pretty small, cramped apartments, but I wanted to investigate the Dixboro. So I called David Liebe Hart. It says you can't call unless you're of basically the Los Angeles area code.
Wow.
So I would have to call him from a local number, and they don't have payphones, so I was out of luck. But
I don't know how he is with email, but
well, email, I did have one of his emails, and he showed it to me. He printed it out. And in the email, it was a Tim and Eric fan messing with him, telling him that he's a Corinthian alien.
Oh man.
I was like, David, that's not a Corinthian. That's not an alien. They're messing with you.
Oh no.
And I wanted to get that paper so I could mess with the guy back, but I forgot to ask for it.
Yeah, he must get some people messing with him all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for the first 2 years, he thought I was an alien. And
What?
he said, because you eat meat, you can't be a Corinthian because they're vegetarian. So you're clearly the bad guys. I can't even remember the names of the bad guys.
Wait, this was David Liebe Hart saying this?
This is David Liebe. No joke. He suspected I might be an alien.
Because you ate meat?
No. Just because I approached him and said, sure, I'll give you a ride home.
Oh,
he just assumes everyone in his life might be an alien.
That's interesting. Because he's a Christian too, you know?
Yeah, he's Christian, but he read a book, and he showed me the book. And after reading that book, he's just a diehard alien believer, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he always believed. But it's an old book. It's by a guy named Atkinson. Can't remember. But yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a character. He's a cool guy. But what was I talking about? What was I going to? Oh yeah, Dixboro. Yeah. So I couldn't investigate inside because I couldn't call him. But I will find a way to call him. No big deal. Sometimes he's on tour. Sometimes he's in Australia. It really depends. You know, the guy he teams up with does have a website and a Twitter, and you know, acts as his manager to an extent, and does get him gigs across the globe. But I decided just to do a sidewalk investigation to Dixboro. So I walked around the front and the lot. I didn't get inside. I didn't want to barge my way in. I didn't want the person in charge to ban me from the place. But I have been in the lobby a good 10 times. And I always felt a creepy vibe in the lobby. Very creepy. So that was just off the top of my head, an obscure place no one's ever investigated. So I walked down the sidewalk, and there is, there's a regular corner market, and there's like a psychic place right there with a neon sign. And then I walked across the street and got a nice shot from across the street. Then I walked back, and on the way back, in broad daylight, a spirit walked up to this, and it totally set it off. It set it off pretty considerably. It was like beep, and when this goes off, this is just a static field. When this thing turns on, it's just a static field. It's probably like the size of maybe a basketball. And if anything breaks that field, it goes off. It's a very simple device. but I was in the middle of the street. It happened to be a very wide area of concrete, and it just went off. And I looked around. I looked for a neon sign. Nothing. It was a salon right next to the Dixboro, and definitely a spirit. I don't always have a recorder with me. I do have a number of recorders, but I think the last time I used this one, I accidentally set it to some weird mode where it only records when it hears you talk, you know, that talk mode.
Yeah.
And it destroyed the entire thing. You have to have a continuous recorder that continuously records. And so the best ones I've found are these two. Lately, the best I've found are these two. These are Philips, very simple Philips recorders. This one is, they're both called the Voice Tracer. Two different models. This one's a little bit higher because you can see the speakers, and this one's a little bit lower, but they pretty much sound almost identical. They continuously record. You got to click the hold button for even paranoid reasons, such as a spirit messing with the electronics, which I think spirits can theoretically do. So you got to click the hold button, and a spirit's not going to unhold it. So spirit, they have limitations.
Yeah, I was, thinking about that. Just as a thought, because you were talking about, and I think this is true too, that spirits can maybe get into the circuitry of things and set things off and set, because they're electric current and all that. Perhaps if they're intelligent enough, would they be able to create a sort of like not an artificial intelligence, but like some sort of message, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what the device is, in some ways, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they are manipulating it.
My first Corners of Rooms experiment, the spirit, when it left, it set a feature off, which set the thing off in a loop, and it just looped. But I didn't know it was looping. I thought it was still doing it. I thought it was actively looping. So I recorded for 30 minutes. I think I recorded for a full hour of the loop, thinking it might still be in my room. But it wasn't. It set some secret loop sequence, which might be built into the device. It might be a very simple touch of an electric pulse. Spirits are energy. Spirits are almost electrical energy and can definitely go inside of electronics and set them off on a level humans can't. This is the periscope by Paranologies that I used at the 1830s house. It's custom. I mean, it's not custom. It's just they're made the same. I did ask them. I paid an extra couple bucks to put in sound, but I always forget to push the sound button. But there is a sound button on here, but I never use it, and not on purpose. It's just when you're at an investigation and it's pitch black, you can barely remember to push all the buttons. But there's a button here. But I did get a comment. Someone said, "How do we know it's not just pre-programmed?" I ordered this from Paranologies. I'm not endorsing it. It's like a digital Ouija board. I've only turned this on 3 times. 2 times at the 1830s house, and the 1 time to test to make sure it wasn't defective after I bought it. It probably took 2 months for them to ship it to my house. It's 3D printed. I'm not encouraging it, but I'll turn it on right now just so you can, I don't know if it's even dark enough, but I'm going to turn it on right now, and I'm not getting a light. Not getting a light. So it's possible the batteries are dead. Okay, we're missing 2 batteries.
Oh.
I can find 2 batteries.
Yeah, let's check it out.
I think I put them in here. Okay, we're looking for double A. We're looking for double A. I put them somewhere. Where did I put them? I have some different devices here. Okay, I got some double A's right here. I'll turn it on just to give you an example of how hard it is to flicker it. Now, there is a video of a guy which built up static on his hand, who actually is on the official YouTube. So if you build up static, you can definitely do this and it'll affect it. But I had it in the window of an Adobe built house in 1830 with wooden, I could tell the restoration project of 1950 involved them putting wooden bars on the window so no one breaks in or no one lives there. Those wooden bars look to be fairly modern, so they're not part of the original construction. Any wooden parts of the house probably decayed many years ago, but it's just wood. You can't get in. There's a lock on the door. The door does look original, really hefty wooden door. So I turned it on. There's a nice LED light to tell you it's on. And I never turn this on in my room, but basically I have to build up electricity on my hand. And trying to,
Yeah,
it's hard. Like I have a bag here. Maybe I can build up. Okay, here it is. Here's a good example. You see it going off?
Yeah, a little bit.
You can barely see it go off. I would have to turn off the lights.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
So this is an example of what the static electricity. I know, a very bad example.
That's
it's hard
very
to
cool,
see.
though. Yeah.
But I'm going to turn it off now. But the spirit set it off one at a time, very slowly, almost to show, almost to prove to the camera that it's intelligent. And then I have two of these. And I could tell the full story of what happened. Then I have two of these. These are like a miniature version of this. Obviously, instead of 8 lights, it only has 2. And that's the only difference. It's the same device. It's not pre-programmable. It's just a static field, just like the antenna of the Melmeter, just a static field. The only difference is there's a light showing you when the static field was broken. Whereas this, it does have some lights and some sound effects. It's not pre-programmable. Very simple device. I've never opened it up, but there is a warranty. I don't know how many years the warranty is, but so I bought these. These are like $40 a piece. Pretty expensive. But I wanted to test it out. And I almost bought these exclusively for the 1830s house. There's a wire, it's kind of bent. And one thing I would say is don't throw anything on top of these. Because this one's pretty nice and straight, but this one's a little bent. Because as I got the evidence of these being set off, and I can turn one of these on. It does the same thing as the last one. I'm not advertising this. It's like a digital Ouija board. But I see a faint green flicker. Very hard to see it. But, okay, you can see it now. There's enough on my hands where you can see it flicker. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. The spirit set it off one very strongly, prominently, then the other.
Wow.
And so I filmed and continued to film for 30 minutes, not knowing if it's going to do anything else. But after it did the middle device and the 2 devices, it pretty much stopped doing anything. So it got it all within the first 10 minutes of filming, maybe the first 5 minutes of filming. But it waited. It was nice enough to wait until I turned on, which GoPro was it? Until I turned on this GoPro and turned on my Sony Handycam. So it waited for me to turn on these devices, but I waited to turn these on until those were on.
Wow.
But luckily I got it in 4K. Pretty good quality, even though this isn't night vision. And then I saw lights coming through the trees. So I saw like tree shapes on the wall of this Adobe building at 10 at this point, it would have been 10:30, 10:35, 10:40. Because I continued to film hoping something happens and nothing happened. But this is the third night I've been there. This is the very night that I was at Hollywood Boulevard at 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. At 10 p.m. that very same night, September 30th, I was at the 1830s house. So that can give you an idea of how long it took me to drive. I left at about 10:45 and got to LA about 1 a.m. on the dot. So, it's about that far away. But I'd never seen these lights before. Artificial lights coming through the trees. I turned, I saw what looked like headlights of a truck or headlights of a tractor coming my way. And the first thing I thought was they're seeing a light show in the window, but they would have really had to see it at the right moment. Right. But I think what would have set it off would have been this laser. See, I turned on the laser show.
Yep.
After the 3 devices, I put these, and I set these there for 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And this one has a green light. This one has a really strong green light. And I turned on the laser show. So in the window is this laser show, which looks like this.
Wow.
Sit for 30 minutes because I was waiting to see if there was a shadow across the laser.
Yeah.
But the farmer or whoever it is, the local
farmer
on the other side of the field, behind the trees, luckily, they saw this laser show in a window of a house they know to be abandoned.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm going to get this guy. We're going to... So I grabbed everything, shoved it in the bag, and ran. In the space of 30 seconds, I grabbed everything.
Yeah.
Some of the things were still on beeping in my bag.
Oh, my God.
But unfortunately, this got bent. This was laser printed, and it got bent in the process. Got to be very careful with these things. They're delicate. But I almost had the sense that if it wasn't that spirit, it was a spirit that might have tipped off the farmer, because why else is he going to be peering out his window at 10:40 a.m., 10:40 p.m.? Oh, 10:40 p.m. I see a red light. Get in my tractor and drive. It's like, what?
No, yeah. Huh.
So I think it's possible it might have been tipped off. He might have been tipped off by a spirit, or just happened to look out his front window, which happens to have a front view. It would have been a distance, quite a distance. It's hard to say. But I'm glad he didn't see me, or they, or whoever it was, because then they would have security. Then I could never go back. One of the best things about this place is nobody knows about it. So the spirit, I would say the spirit was happy to see me the third time. Showcase its abilities, like, all right. It might have been motivated by the fact that I said, I'm going to be on my way. If you set off the devices, I'll take off. And I'm going to Los Angeles. And then it sets off the device.
That was
perhaps because I was still there like for 30 minutes after it did its thing. Maybe that's why he was mad that it informed. Who knows? We don't know how spirits work, but either it was happy I was there, or was ticked off I was there a little bit too long. I don't know. But the other occasions which it manifested that I showed up were the first time was at 3:50 a.m. I was driving through. I was like, I'll park. I'll test it out. And close to 4 a.m. is when I heard the footsteps in the grass. Now, one thing you might not notice, you can go back and watch the video, but when this thing, I can't remember when it was, either right after this goes off or right after one of these goes off, you can hear a rustling in the grass in that very video. Did you hear that?
Yeah, with the owl, right?
No, it's not the owl.
Oh, it's not. No.
It's an independent rustling.
No, but there's a rustling, and then there's the owl.
Yeah, a
Same
rustling.
video? Okay.
Yeah. So that owl was strange. It was three screeches from the owl.
Yeah.
And that was the third time I was there. So I don't know if it was symbolic or what. It probably would have screeched if I stayed there, but
Yeah.
I don't know if the owl was screeching at the farmer driving toward me, or if the owl was screeching at the lights in the window, or me, or the spirit. But the spirit did use the devices, and then the owl screeched. If any nocturnal bird is going to see a spirit, it'll be an owl.
Yeah.
Owls are symbolically used amongst occultists, you name it,
Mm-hmm.
But after it sets off this device, if you watch that video, there's a rustling to the right of me. That right of me is the exact same corner of the house. It's an external wall corner. It's an actual stone wall built using old-fashioned concrete methods before concrete existed. And the same way an adobe house was built back in the day. And it's a stone wall. I've even considered, is there gold buried in that corner or what?
Ah, interesting.
I don't think so. See, spirits think differently and they do things differently, but I think it was a second after I set this off, the light goes off, and then I hear a rustling in the same corner where I heard the footsteps and saw the footsteps in front of my face. It was the same manifestation in the same corner. At this point, I've heard it 3 times, the rustling of the grass in the same corner 3 times.
Wow.
Because the first time I heard it, recorded, saw it, I walked around the house a good 2 times, and then I heard it a second time. But my camera was off the second time, so I didn't film it, unfortunately. See, I kept turning off my camera to save battery time. I didn't know it was an active place, that active. But then there was rustling. I almost had the thought, like driving to Los Angeles, that why would the spirit go from the window, turning on this, to a corner over there? It's almost like there's a secret tunnel from the house to that corner that the spirit uses. I know spirits love tunnels. There might be some sort of secret tunnel system. I don't know. Spirits don't need tunnels. They use corners of rooms like a portal. So maybe it's just geometrically, it's an easy leap for them. I don't know. It's interesting. But we got off topic to an extreme extent. How
It's
many
okay.
hours has this video gone? I don't know. How long have we gone?
What time is it now?
Wow. Is it
Maybe 2 hours about?
almost 2 hours?
Almost
Wow.
2 hours, yeah.
Well, does anyone have any questions? Or Brandon, would you like to share anything?
Well, I mean, it's a totally different topic.
That's fine. You can talk about anything.
Okay. Well, Corey Good, who of the Blue Avian Spearbeing Alliance ambassador to the Blue Avian guy, who you did the video on, I think, what was it, like 2.5 years ago or something like that? Whenever it was, you were, if not, I mean, CW Chanter was first, but whatever, independently of Chanter, you were the first person to basically call the Blue Avians charade for what it was. And then we did the Blue Avian special a few months ago and stuff. But now he is so desperate because Gaia fired him and replaced him with another guy that just says, "Oh, I'm in the secret space program too. I was on the 2020 and back too," and blah 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 blah. And so Corey sent out. He's trademarked. He's trying to trademark the term secret space program, which he didn't come up with.
You
Richard
can't
Dolan,
trademark secret space program?
Blue Avians, and like Return of the Guardians and all these different words. He's trade. So before this guy Jason Rice went on Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, before he went on Fade to Black, Teresa Llaneros' sister, who's a lawyer, sent him an email, and it said, "Just to let you know, Corey's lawyer, and if you talk about any of these phrases, he's trademarked them, so you could be liable." And CW Chanter has just gone off on him. Everybody's going off on him. Like he's he's trying to control the narrative. You know what I mean? And it's just so desperate. He's just so desperate. It's a desperate thing. And by the way, man, it's UFO cults are no joke. My brother lives in a town in California where they had a UFO cult, death cult, and they all wore Nike sneakers, and they were called was it the Heaven's Gate cult in Rancho Santa Fe, California. And they they were a UFO cult, and there was another one called the Solar Temple, and they're interesting anyway. But these UFO cults can be like Jim Jones situations. So about a year ago, when we did the Blue Avian special, and all the criticism we did on Blue Avians were coming out, and Corey Good, he said that we were the Dark Alliance and all this other stuff, and he threatened some people. He threatened a bunch of other people, but Joe from the Carolinas and people like that have said, let's all stand and take this moment to say that we reject Corey Good's trademarking of common phrases like secret space program and stuff like that, because other people have talked about it, and in his Facebook post, he's like, I trademarked it. He's like, but and I'm going to be able to decide who's legitimate and who's not, so it's just ridiculous. And so I think it's important. I'm going to make a video. I have a few ideas. I might write another song because I wrote that Blue Chicken Man song just kind of off the top of my head.
The guy that replaced him, I've seen a billion commercials of that guy.
Oh, really?
I've seen aliens face to face, and then they show a picture of like a model from Norway. I've seen them. the Palladians. I've seen them. Now, I don't dispute the fact that you've seen them in your mind during meditation. They're freaking demons and they're freaking spirits. They're not aliens. It sounds like a cliche. That's if they're real. There's a huge chance they're fake and concocted for the purposes of people signing up, and that service costs money. But actual disclosure costs $0. If it ever happened, real disclosure, it doesn't have a subscription of $9.99 a year.
Amen. Yeah, that's right.
And man, they're pushing a lot of those commercials, no matter what. I go to a ghost video talking about ghosts, and I see this guy. I've seen aliens. Man, but you can't suspect super secret space program. The first time I heard that phrase would have been probably around the time Area 51 was big in the 90s, early 90s. Maybe I picked up a book by Mr. X. This is before the Simpsons episode where Homer is like Mr. X. And Mr. X was like an anonymous UFO whistleblower, and he never used his real name. Maybe his name is Dr. X. I can't remember. Mr. X, something X. And he used super secret space program all the time.
Oh.
I remember Tesla talked about only
Tesla
fictional.
did?
No, not really. We're talking people using Tesla's name to promote a UFO book that has nothing to do with Tesla.
Okay.
And Richard Hoagland in the 90s would have been talking to Art Bell about a super secret space program.
No kidding. Right.
I mean, you can't copyright that. It's too general. It's like the Fine brothers trying to copyright the word react. It's too vague.
Right.
Too general.
Well, it's too common. It's too much and so I think it's an assault on free speech, but it also shows that Corey and the Spear Being Alliance are really desperate. You know what I mean? Like they're getting this is really they used to have the Gaia show. Now Corey's off of Gaia. David Wilcox off of Gaia. He wrote a giant resignation letter that's like 14 pages long. That was leaked and stuff like that. And so we're just refusing Corey Good. C.W. Chanter called it an Order 66 on Corey Good, and so but Joe just said call to action or whatever. But let's what the good thing is about Corey is and you know, where I have my differences with CW Chanter, and Chanter might have his differences with me or you or Dark Journalist or Walter Bosley or Joe from the Carolinas or any of these people that are talking about this. We can all agree that Corey Good is no good. You know what I mean? He's Corey bad. You know, and by the way, it's like, you know, the this the letter that he got was sent by email. You don't serve people by email. You know, if it was a legitimate legal complaint, you don't serve people by email. And it was set up with like a Microsoft Word resume font. You know, the font was all weird and not, you know, up to like legal standards and stuff. It's interesting. I'll do it in my own video, but yeah, I just want to, you know, hear you weigh in on it, because you were one of the first people to make a video about it. And I remember sharing it all over the place, and people were like, well, whatever. But then, you know, we found out that Corey Good had a restraining order on him from his old employer, you know. Again, imagine if you got fired you worked for a company for like 6 months and you got fired for not doing your job or whatever. And then your company had to take a restraining order on you because you were so crazy, you know. And you know, people keep thinking that like Corey's like this empathic ambassador. How is an empathic ambassador going to trademark words that and prevent other people from coming forth with their disclosure? It makes no sense unless he's a liar and he's just trying to make money off of this thing, you know.
Yeah, I've always said I personally see only two possibilities. He's making it up, or he's having some type of demonic astral visit, dream type, lucid dream type situations. Now, people that are fans of aliens hate the fans of ghosts, and then vice versa. There's a huge dispute, and I think the show Ancient Aliens is at the center of it, because Ancient Aliens never talks about spirits ever. They only talk about the evidence of aliens, physical. They never look at the cave drawing and think, this might have some spiritual meaning. No, they always got to say that's a spaceship. Not everything is a physical spaceship. Some things are a drawing of perhaps what some tribe saw after they took some shamanistic drugs.
Or a representation of an idea, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Not a ball. A ball doesn't always mean a steel orb from an advanced civilization. You know?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. No, you're right.
But I have a drawing. It's at arm's reach. Let me go get this drawing real quick. Right. I've already shown it before, but. Okay, so this is Mysteriala's book. You've probably seen it.
Very cool.
And I have a drawing in here. Let me find it. All right. It's not this guy, but...
Oh, I have that guy.
Here's this Corners of Room guy.
Yeah, he's right over here. Yeah. He's in the corner of my room, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's freaky. Take him out of the corner.
I know. My girlfriend saw that. She's like, what is this? Okay. I was like, don't worry about it.
I could show you something a little bit creepy.
Show it.
You know that game I showed you earlier? This game with the cobra on the front? You know, it's my #1 favorite game of all time. It's a fun game.
Serpent Isle.
It came out in 1992. So I was a little kid when it came out, and the graphics were cutting edge at the time. Obviously, they're dated now, but I stayed up.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I couldn't stay up late because I was that young. I got up at 6, even at 5 a.m. as a little kid, so I could play an hour before school. Wow. That's how addicted I was to that game.
Jeez.
And there was no internet. At least we didn't have the internet. So there's no cheats. I didn't have the walkthrough book. I didn't have any help. It took me months. We're talking years to beat that game. It took me years. But
Jeez.
in that game, there are gates. And these gates teleport you to a different location. Very common in video games. But in Serpent Isle, it looks like this. This is a gate. It's carved out of stone. This is what the gates look like. Now, they're pixels. They're tiny pixels. But I saw those pixels and drew it like this. It's like, yeah, that's more accurate representation of what it should look like if it was in higher def, which is not. And we're talking not no later than months after I drew this did I have my first demonic encounter in that room.
Whoa, no way. Oh, wow.
This is the original drawing, 2009. I remember he was late. 2009.
Huh.
I even remember the details. Remember when poker was popular online?
Oh, yeah. Still is, yeah.
But when it was legal.
Yeah.
They, remember the government cracked down on a lot of those poker sites?
Mm-hmm.
I was big into watching the World Series of Poker on TV, and I was like, I'll give the chat rooms a shot. Or not chat rooms, but the poker rooms with a little chat room on it. And because there was a new show of poker superstars becoming millionaires from these stupid online poker websites. So I got a prepaid $50 card so I wouldn't give them my real card because I didn't trust those websites.
No way, yeah.
So I got a prepaid $50 card, and I played and I played. I think I almost got up to double, and then I lost it all. But it was fun. Then I drew this. Then I remember the government cracked down on those websites, and I was like, I'm glad I only put $50 into those websites. And then in 2010, February 17th, past 9 p.m., a freaking demon appeared to me for the first time. And it didn't ever appear to me optically. It was never visual. I didn't see. The lights were off, pitch black. But I just want to share that. Okay, so, oh yeah, here's a better representation of the serpent gate with the actual stone.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the stone version.
Did you know what's interesting is I was looking at, Taylor Swift, her new album, Reputation, of the tour. The T-shirt looks just like the Pyramidal T-shirt.
Oh, really?
Kind of, because it has the serpent, you know what I mean, wrapped around the archway,
Oh, did she rip that off?
Kinda. You got to check it out. You be the judge,
I mean, I understand it's a generic concept, I guess, but I invented it as far as I know.
No, it looked a lot like I saw someone with it looked just like it. It was just like, oh wow,
this is what you're talking about.
Even the font of the lettering and stuff, like with Mysterious.
Here's the.
That's it. That's the one. I love that one.
I drew this myself. I drew it first, and then it wasn't bumpy. It wasn't round enough, and I went back and I redrew it, and I drew every single scale as a circle, or just a bunch of little circles if you close up on it.
That's cool.
But concerning Corey Good and seeing aliens, now I can't speak for people that see aliens, but I did have a lucid dream on 2/27/2015, and I've already talked about it. But it was a Nordic-looking person, and I've never had a dream in my life where the dream was 10 seconds long and consisted of a being appearing and then disappearing, except for this dream on 2/27/15. I had the feeling and the sense and the vibe that was very creepy. I had the feeling and the sense, the vibe, it was the devil. And it appeared like a Nordic alien-looking thing. The robe was white and closed. The cloak was green, felt kind of green-looking. And the border, almost in the dream, I saw a zoom up of the border. The dream was so vivid and so lucid, I could zoom up on the cloak unless that was part of the dream, a zoom up of the cloak. And there was an L shape, a backwards L shape, and a square and a square. That was the design.
Wow.
And I had the thought 10 seconds after waking up that that was Lucifer, because that's what the L means. Very freaky, very scary. I'm not putting any scare tactics in people's imaginations or whatever, but then it had this silver pipe looking thing go from the shoulders to behind, just as a pop-up collar, like in the 80s, like a pop-up collar.
Yeah.
And it had three distinct rib type things. And I even drew more detail on what they look like. They really look kind of like it when you close up, it almost looks like chainmail armor.
Okay.
And someone made the comment that Lucifer supposedly had pipes built into him for musical reasons.
Right. Like,
and when I look at it, it could be connected to his body, and it could be pipes. All I know is I didn't make this up. I didn't like plan, what should the devil look like? I had a legitimate lucid dream. I saw him floating in the sky. I saw his feet. And his feet were bare, and his hands were bare, and he was Caucasian. And he had blonde hair, kind of like Poppy, to be honest. And yeah, pretty freaky. But that could have been an entity appearing to me. And I could see someone inclined, having watched 50 episodes of Ancient Aliens, would immediately think, oh, the aliens appeared to me.
Palladium, yeah.
But
that's Billy Meyer stuff, though, right?
I think I mean, he didn't invent it. I think even before Billy Meyer, the Palladians were the thing. He kind of jumped on that and turned it into a thing. But I think if someone does have a being come to them in their mind in a dream, do the math. It's not an alien. There's no physicality to it. And it's not an alien in 10 billion light years away transmitting to your brain. It's a spirit standing in your room transmitting to your brain is what it is. Spirits can transmit dreams straight into our brain, but they have to be pretty close proximity. And I would say the number one thing you should trust is the sense, the vibe. After I saw that dream and had that dream, it was a negative, creepy vibe. Therefore, probably a negative, creepy spirit put that in my head. I reject it, whatever it was, and it was definitely possibly just a picture, an image, an invented, concocted thing. But I've had enough demonic dreams where I think demons, incubus, succubus, whatever you want to call it, they almost design dreams like Hollywood designs movies.
Yep.
And they can plan for 10 years on the perfect dream.
Thousands.
I could say this. I went to my sister's apartment back when she lived, actually, believe it or not, pretty close proximity to the pirate house, the 1830s house. We're talking maybe a 5-minute walk from the 1830s house. So I slept one night 5 minutes away from the 1830s house before I even knew he was there. It was before anyone showed it to me. And I had the scariest vivid lucid dream I've ever had in my life. Wow. Very freaky, very scary. This is the dream. Now, there's a Hollywood movie, and let me try to date it, because if I don't tell you the date, you're going to think I ripped it off from this movie, but I didn't. It would have been, let's see, before she moved to Santa Maria, because 2009 is when I moved to Santa Maria, and she only moved there maybe 1 year prior. So 2008, 2007. I don't know. It could have been around 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. My sister was living in an apartment, 5-minute walk from the 1830s house. I slept there one night, had the craziest nightmare, super vivid. This is the nightmare. And I saw it in a movie a good 3 years later. So Hollywood actually produced a nightmare I had into a movie, which tells me that these demons give the same nightmare to people over and over and over. And a Hollywood writer had that dream or knows someone that had the dream and wrote it down, turned it into a script.
Interesting.
This is the, I can't remember the name of the movie. It might be called Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that's the movie or not, but I think that's the one where some kids go to a cabin and then they go crazy and they start like killing each other. Is that it?
Yeah, Cabin.
Okay.
Josh Whedon. Yeah.
In the dream that I had before this movie came out, I don't care that they made it. I didn't come up with it. A demon came up with it.
Yeah.
Straight up a demon dream. I go to what looked like a basement of a house, and it looks very similar to the house in the movie. This is years before the movie. And I'm a teenager, and I'm at a teenager party. And kids are just drinking beer, and there's a kid in a Letterman jacket, and there's some cheerleaders there. Just, it was weird. But all of a sudden, the kids
Oh no. You just cut off John, I think.
Wait.
All right, you're back. The kids.
It might be glitching out a little bit. Hope not. But the freakiest scene in the whole nightmare that I had before this movie came out. I'm not a horror fan. I must have saw the horror movie when my sister was watching it. My sister loves horror movies. And I did move into her house in Santa Maria. That might have been where I was exposed to it. But in my dream, the kid gets a knife and he cuts himself open, top to bottom, and he opens up. This is my dream. This is my nightmare. And a bunch of snakes come out. Like a thousand snakes come out. That's when I woke up and I was like, what the F? That's not me. I don't have dreams like that. That's not normal. That's freaky. And that the next morning I said to my nephew who lived there, I said, whoa, I had the freakiest dream I've ever had in my life last night. He's like, yeah, I get some freaky dreams too. And like, just.
Yeah. Jeez.
But it seems whenever I mention stuff to him, that's the response. But it was freaky. Now, that movie doesn't have that scene with the snakes, but that movie does have the scene with the kids killing themselves. Yeah. Because simultaneously, as this guy's cutting himself open, I turn left and I turn right, and all the other kids start killing themselves at the same time.
Wow, interesting.
And so it was really intense where like everyone at the party was a demon except for me.
Yeah.
That's the sense the dream had on me. And then I saw that movie and it was like deja vu. When I watched that movie, it was like deja vu from the dream.
Have you ever seen Event Horizon?
Yes.
Movie? Remember the end where it's hell? And
yeah. They go to an alien world to try to seek out aliens, and really it's just hell. Yeah.
Yeah, they open up the dimension to hell. And but like I was saying, with dreams like this past week I've had these dreams. And but before they would come, but they wouldn't come as much as often. But some of them, you're right. It's like you get such a creepy feeling for the whole rest of the day. It just lingers on with you because it's so grotesque. You know what I mean? There was one I had where it seemed like it was like I was sleeping in my room, and now it was kind of awake, but waking up is kind of sleepy. But all of a sudden, my entire room, just in front of me, my bed and everything, was water. Was this like mucky water, and I could smell like dead fish, and there were all these sea creatures in it, and it was just this disgusting muckiness. Anyway, it was just gross. And I just remember that's like, I need to get out of here type situation. It wasn't a pleasant dream or anything. It was an absolute horrific nightmare. But I've never seen that on film or anything like that. It's kind of like a Lovecraftian thing. I don't know if it's because I was reading Lovecraft at the time, maybe. But he never talks about that exactly, but you know, yeah, there's some, I do think that, and it's, as I've researched this more and more of what, like, exorcists think about these things, because they think about demons all the time, and they're very matter of fact about it, like Father Chad Ripperger and stuff. He'll say, like, oh yeah, obviously demons can plant thoughts in your mind. What, are you stupid? Of course they can. Like, it's like, oh yeah, obviously. And it's foundational to like some practices and some faiths, and not just faiths, but like just, it's just the way the world works. It's just, like, because where do bad ideas come from? Where do bad choices come from? And so I've been rereading like the Screw Tape Letters, where it's like, one demon trying to advise another demon as to how to drive this person, this World War II soldier in this case, away from goodness and beauty and into sin, and just from like an argument at the dinner table, or just like simple things like that. If you can get a memory into a person's mind, an emotion, anything, just for that split second to distract them from the path of holiness, then then they can. Then they've accomplished their goal.
Yeah. So. I experienced what I think was some type of demonic resistance at the Comedy Store. I think the guy that invited me on stage was cool with it, but the manager was not. But she couldn't kick me out because I didn't do anything. But she wanted to. She wanted to ban me from, just kick me out.
Wow.
I'm never going back there again. So they can't ban someone that doesn't want to go back. I can't go back because the spirit legitimately, from my perspective, theoretically speaking, manipulated the emotions of the manager to the point where she had a seething hatred of me. I'm just a guy that was on vacation, that bought 3 tickets, went to 3 shows. Why would she hate me? I'm just a customer. Because I broke out this and did a sidewalk investigation. That's still not enough of reason to hate me. So she had an illogical reaction to me, which I've seen paralleled in Ghost Adventures episodes. There's at least 20 episodes where the proprietor of the building is pissed off at the ghost team and wants to kick them out, to the point where they almost get in a fist fight. I remember there's one episode where a guy felt like he wanted to beat Zach Bagans up, wanted to punch him in the face for no reason, illogical. And then Zach Bagans wanted to punch the guy back illogically. And of course, they're going to blow it out of proportion with theatrics for purposes of the show, but they both claimed they hated each other's guts for no reason. And here's the Mega Millions, and I did not win.
Oh yeah,
$1 billion. I didn't win. I did not buy these tickets. Well, I bought this one, but I didn't buy. It was $1 billion. $1
billion with a B. Yep. Of course, we talk about the lottery goes off, right?
Did we lose you?
Oh, we're back.
Okay, you're back.
Yep.
So these are relatives, and this is mine, and we all lost, all losers, because I don't have psychic abilities, and I'm not willing to enter into any contract with a negative entity for numbers to the lottery. And let's face it, if a negative entity ever tells you they can give you the winning numbers, they haven't given the past 1,000 schlubs the numbers. Why would they give it to you? So don't trust trickster spirits. They're going to lie to your face. I mean, they're going to lie to you. I don't know. I've never had full-blown two-sided conversations with negative entities. It's usually one-sided, and I can see psychologists saying, that's because they don't exist. If they don't exist, how do these things get turned on when I ask it to set it off? It's legitimate. You can either take it or leave it. My response to these things getting set off is understand what it is, buy it yourself, do it yourself. But at the same time, I have to say, don't buy it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go to sleep one night and you're going to have no care in the world. And then a freaking negative entity is going to walk in your room, perhaps ding your lamp a couple times, stomp on the floor a couple times, knock over some boxes. It's a rare scenario, but it still does occasionally residually happen with me here and there. And I don't know. I think spirits do follow me to an extent, but I think we're protected. I think everyone has a guardian angel that protects us. And I think the guardian angel's like, no, you can't bother them too much.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stop. There's a level at which you got to stop. So spirits aren't going to be picking up a hammer and throwing it at your face or anything blatantly obvious like that. It's the reason why people don't believe spirits exist. Spirits can be seen indirectly. The first time I went to the 1830s house, this is a documentary I will be releasing this year. I walked around the house twice with this device in my hand, filming it. And yeah, I did talk to myself. I said, I wonder if there's a spirit here. If there's a spirit here, set off this device. And that got the spirit's attention. Because the spirit probably for the past 100 years had never heard anyone say, is there a spirit here? It's not something people do regularly. People don't talk to themselves saying, is there a spirit here? I was talking to myself because I didn't know. So I took a leap of faith, if you will. I took a leap of belief, and the spirit reacted to it. I do think spirits do react to belief, to faith, and they will almost only reveal themselves if you at least want to believe. If you have zero belief, zero want to believe, sarcastically, rudely say, ha, ghosts don't exist, and then smash a bottle on the wall and just leave or maybe get drunk, spirits are going to see the level of respect you give them, and they're not going to reveal themselves to you. I was just talking to myself with a camera and a meter, and it did reveal itself to me. It's a true story. It's what happened. I think it's something that can be repeatable, because the second time I went there, I did the same thing, but knowing there's something there. Knowing is a little bit different than just believing. And it did reveal itself on this device at least 2 times. And the second time it did set this off, but I only filmed half of it.
Oh.
So I will compare the second time to the third time. But it did more of this the second time. The third time, it didn't set this off at all. I don't think there's a single spike on this at all. And when it did set this off, it was like a 2.5. 2.5 is very common with spirits, I noticed. But that's just the distance it's going to be from the device.
Okay.
On Hollywood Boulevard, I got as high as a, I don't know, man. I got like a 50.0. I got like way too high. I think I even got 126. That made me believe it might be a cell tower.
Yeah.
But at the Ritz Brothers, this went off. And it was RuPaul and the Ritz Brothers, I think. It went off. So it had nothing to do with the stars, unless one of the Ritz Brothers just really wants us to know who he is. I think his name is
RuPaul has a Walk of Fame star?
Yeah, it's right next to the Ritz Brothers. I said Ritz Brothers to someone, and they're like the Ritz Crackers.
Yeah.
And the Ritz Brothers were comedians, so I think even they would appreciate that joke, you know?
Yeah. Hey, you know what's not a joke, though, is I guess, you mentioned before, and I'll just say this real quick. You said you were talking about the base of the spine and between the head, the skull and that right there. there's a comic book artist, Grant Morrison, very brilliant comic book artist, Grant Morrison. One of the biggest influences for the film The Matrix and stuff like that. Anyway, he's done a lot of books. He wrote a book on a lot of different things, but he had this vision, a meditation experience, encounter with entities, if you will, where he was brought in the room. He was studying Voodoo at the time. And he said that he was brought into a room of scorpion, what he called scorpion kings, like these giant insects, kings that were scorpions. And they said, if you want to join us, you have to get a tattoo of a scorpion right at the base of your spine, in between right at the base of your skull and your spine, right there.
Yeah, I'm a Scorpio, and I still would never do that.
Right. Oh, are you? I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So there you go. But yeah. And he was like, oh. And he's like, yeah, and when you become one of us, you're all about just death. It's all like, it's negative. You're a negative vampire type growth, you know. He was like, no thanks. But he was at least shown that. And I guess some people, and I told my friend Sam about it, who works from like the Voodoo Gnostic workbook and is into like EA Coetting and all these different people and all this voodoo stuff and whatever. And he says, yeah, he's like, yeah, that's like pretty common, you know. He's like, yeah, it's called the Astral Lodge or whatever. Like those are the real entities behind voodoo and things like that. I don't know, but it sounds pretty creepy, pretty freaky.
Yeah, I've heard about that Astral Lodge. I think Coetting talks about that.
Yeah.
But I had a dream which could have been the Astral Lodge. It looked like it was a Corners of Rooms themed dream that I had while I started to write the book. And I can share a drawing I've never shared before, because I'm not done with it. I'm going to perfect it, but here's a rough draft of the lodge, if you will. I don't know if it was a lodge, but I've heard ascended masters collect spiritually out of their bodies, out of body wise, they hang out. I don't know how that works, but this is just the lore of the place. But here's one drawing I drew of the dream. I had a dream featuring Corners of Rooms, and a dead relative of mine was in the dream. And anyway, this is the floor of the wooden house, building, lodge, whatever it was. It was just regular wooden boards, wooden walls, and the trim was all wooden. It all was, I guess it was stained, middle grade staining of wood, and there was a powder type coloring along all the edges of this house, and it greatly featured Corners of Rooms. And it was as I started to write the Corners of Rooms book, I had this dream, super vivid. And in the dream, I was guided down the hallway, and they showed me a book, and there were monks in this house. The monks, I believe, I think they were wearing stereotypically Tibetan Buddhism, you know, that neon golden orange robe. I do believe they're wearing that. And one of the monks showed me a book, and I picked up the book, and the cover like deteriorated and like broke off. As I'm turning, the cover breaks off in my hand. And I closed it because I didn't want to break it. And I looked at the book real close, and it had a logo of a corner of a room, and it said Corners of Rooms.
Whoa.
And so this is a monk showing me a book that's deteriorating, and it's the last copy on planet Earth, and it's basically turning to dust. And it was written hundreds of years ago.
Wow.
And I'm writing a book called Corners of Rooms about the exact same subject.
Wow, that's
like
amazing.
a repeating of something they knew, but even they admit the knowledge is almost gone.
Yeah.
So I considered it a very important dream. I fully write everything about the dream, and I drew pictures. You saw what the wooden floorboards looked like.
Hmm.
But considering a dead family member was hanging out in the room down the hall to the book room, and the book collection was very small and modest. It was a tiny shelf with like 30 books.
Hmm.
So maybe these were lost books, long lost books. I don't know, but it seemed like a Buddhist belief, knowledge that is lost. And
Interesting.
so I think it was a spirit almost showing me that it's important and you should write about it.
Wow.
So I think it's a legit subject. I know of a surety. See, one of the reasons Corners of Rooms is so important is because once you know spirits enter your room from the corner, you can pay attention to it. It's one of those indirect ways you can tell. It's direct ways, but to an extent, it's an indirect way you can tell a spirit has entered your room, and you can tell the difference. Okay, you hear a bunch of creaks in your corner, right? You don't know if it's the temperature changing, if someone changed the thermostat. You don't know if it's just the creaks, the settling of the house. It could be those things. But pay attention to what happens after. If something unusual, like a box knocks over after you hear a bunch of creaks, you can piece it together. You can see, hey, this isn't just the creaks. A spirit entered my room. You can feel a vibe of the room change. And if 1,000 people report this, it's no longer just one guy having a theory. It's an established thing. And in the occult, there are occult circles that already accept it as a fact before I ever considered it. And I didn't know this because I didn't research it. It just happened to me. The haunted room I lived in, the spirit or spirits, I think it was two now, entered the corner of my room, made a bunch of creaks, prominent creaks, knocks and bangs in the corner, and then they would proceed to walk around my room and knock over stuff. And they didn't knock over stuff like someone ransacking your room. They knocked over stuff very subtly, vaguely. Well, the haunted room is worse, but recently it's very subtle things like touching the lamp, and it'll be small stuff. It'll be small stuff. It'll be like a bag doing this. And you're
Yeah.
like, what was that? Just really small stuff that a spirit can do a lot easier than something big. Spirits are very limited with the physical world. I don't know if certain spirits have a gift to move objects. It's pretty unknown. It's an unknown realm, but I know they do use corners to enter your room.
You know, I was thinking maybe it's like it compares to like a tail, you know? Like I know, like we know like they have feet and stuff and they have like humanoid, they can take a humanoid shape. But I wonder if some of the knockings and pushing over is like the same force of like a tail of a monkey or an animal or some, because people do have visions. Like Thomas Sheridan had a vision of one in the corner of his room of a demon, and it had like a tail or it looked like a little monkey demonic golem type thing. It
Yeah,
jumped on. So
I've watched his videos where he talks about it, and he talked about it in greater detail in one of his recent videos. Probably in the past month, he uploaded a video where he talks about it in more detail. He said it jumped on him. He almost grabbed it as a reflex, and then he shoved it, and then it disappeared. He said he basically banged it against the wall, and it disappeared, vanished.
yeah.
And he said his dresser lifted up off the ground, a separate incident from the monkey demon thing. His dresser, very small dresser, lifted up off the ground and jumped on him. His dresser, like I guess some type of small dresser.
Yeah.
So that is weird, but it's in the realm of possibility. You know, he believes demons are literal, external, intelligent entities.
Yep.
He's of a different, perhaps, persuasion because he believes in magic. In the
Right.
fact he's a practicing magic believer, but
True.
if you watch enough of his videos, you can see he doesn't do black magic.
Right.
He tries to
Good.
focus on white magic or nature magic or meme magic or whatever the case. But
Yeah. 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 Well, you know what I
yes,
heard today that was interesting too is that you ever hear of a guy, Nicholas Shrek? He's
Shrek.
yeah, Nicholas. Yeah, not the
No.
movie. Nicholas Shrek. He's the husband of Zena LaVey, who is Anton LaVey's daughter.
Daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, but he did like the Charles Manson Superstar. He was in Radio Werewolf and all that stuff. He did an interview that came out today, and he's re-releasing his film book or whatever, and he says in this book, he's like you know, they talk about Satanism, and he's like, well, he's like, you know, for some people like Anton LaVey, Satan was just like a corporate thing that he could logo, and it meant nothing because he was an atheist, and there's a lot of atheist Satanists. He's like, but I'm not one of them. He's like, I believe in a literal devil that is an entity onto itself with its own intelligence and all that. And, and so, like, even he's not even an atheist. You know, he believes in the entities, and the devil is real. You know, evil is a real manifestation with its own energy signature and its own manifestation.
Yeah. Wow. So he believes in a literal devil, and he's
Yes,
married to the daughter of Anton.
that's right.
Wow.
Yep.
You know, I mean, if you have, I don't know, if you have enough sensitivity, spiritually speaking, you know when a negative energy enters your room
Right.
out of nowhere. You know it when it happens. Usually there's some build up to it. But in my case, I'm just minding my own business and negative energy enter my room.
Yeah.
Pretty freaky stuff. I kick it out. And in 2011, I was ignorant of even how to interact with such a thing. So I tried some extreme kicking out procedures, and they came back 1 hour later 10 times madder than it was when it before I kicked it out. Nowadays, I'm more casual about it. Trust me, if I see a spirit manifest in front of me, my reaction is going to be more treating it like a human being because I'm almost used to these things. My reaction might be sup. You know, it might be something like that. Even though that sounds stupid.
No. Yeah.
Your reaction to an actual spirit manifesting is going to be, it's going to be, you almost can't pre-plan it. But I told this story many times. At this point, it's probably 5 months ago. I'm bad at tracking because I'm sure I wrote it down the date somewhere, but spirit entered my room, started touching my stuff, very obviously was walking around. I heard footsteps on my carpet, a very faint sound, very faint. But then it touched my stuff. I've told this story many times, and we're almost done, but it touched my stuff. We're talking, it would have been like really faint touching of many objects, but enough for me to notice it was there. Oh yeah, it did pick up my wires.
Yep.
So it seems to almost manifest near my computer desk over here for some reason. I don't know why. So I stood up and I walked exactly to where it was. And I said, this is my place. And I was very fearless, and it left.
Wow.
I didn't have to break out any procedures, rituals, anything. I just said, hey, this is my room. I talked to it like I would talk to, you know, like, I don't know, like a dog wandering in my room. I was just fearless about it, and it noticed my fearlessness. I think these entities really feed off of fear.
Yep.
And it's perhaps For all I know, it's a different entity I never encountered before. Perhaps it was expecting me to be freaked out. Maybe it didn't know I was haunted to an extreme degree in the past. But
Interesting.
that spirit might have come back. To be honest, I think that spirit was the Mysterialis Corners of Rooms experiment. I think the same entity that did that crap is the same entity that set off the device for the camera. And people are like, that's fake, man. You faked it, man. No one helped me out. I don't have a camera crew. I don't have a partner that sets things off for me. I do this channel solo. I would like to have a ghost crew to an extent, but you got to have a budget for something like that. It's kind of like forming a band. People would be like, where's my money? There's no money in ghost investigating. It's negative money. I've made $0 back from buying this. This is a $350 model. No, I didn't pay $350. I'm just really good at getting the eBay, sniping a good eBay deal. I think like a pawn shop sold this on eBay. So someone pawned this. Who knows how many ghost investigations before me it went on, but it works. And did you do the Mega Millions? Did you try to win the billion?
No, but I heard people talking about it all day today. So I was like, I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I never do. I never play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They say you have to be in it to win it, and I'm never in it. Last time I bought a ticket was probably a year ago, and so like once a year I'll buy a ticket for fun, probably at the wrong time. I've never won. But it's 12:46 my time. What time is it over there?
Oh, it's got to be like 4 a.m. or something.
Oh my gosh, way too late. We're way too late.
I gotta work, so thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Brandon. I think it was a good video. I think it was interesting. Kind of freaky at some points. I don't know. I'm feeling a freaky vibe from these freaky steroids.
I'm I'm about to go to sleep, and I'm afraid it's gonna be like "Welcome to Hell," Brandon. Like, oh God.
All right. Well, until next time, I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus. Be seeing you.